Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Sheikh Abdullah Salim Cultural Center series of talks with the Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research, also known as KISR. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ananud Sharhan from the Education Department, and I will be the talk moderator this evening. The talk will be for 45 minutes, and the last 15 minutes will be for discussion and questions. Our guest for this evening is Dr. Hussein Safar, who has a master's degree and a PhD in the advanced oxidation process for industrial wastewater treatment. Since 2002, he was involved in several projects and activities related to municipal, industrial, pharmaceutical, and agricultural wastewater treatment, using both conventional and advanced methods of treatment. And today he will be talking to us about the assessment of water pollution in Kuwait. It's a pleasure to have you, Dr. Hussein. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Anu, for giving me this opportunity. Let's start with my presentation. Today I will talk about the assessment of water pollution in Kuwait. Of course, the topics that I will discuss in my presentation, including introduction, background, type of pollutant, water sources, wastewater sources, level of monitoring, a new emerging pollutant in wastewater, methods of wastewater treatment, and summary and recommendations. The beginning, let's talk about the assessment. Assessment of water quality and pollution consider a critical issue since water resources are used for several matters, including human consumption, residential, agriculture, industrial, pharmaceutical, and recreational activities. In general, when you're talking about the assessment, from a general point of view, you'll just take a look over the water resources in Kuwait, what they've been used to look like 10 or 20 years ago and now. For example, if you talk about the seawater, you can see that the turbidity is increasing. The temperature near the refineries are also not stable. I mean, it could be the water could be affected by temperature to be hot or cold. You can see, I mean, the death of fishes. Those all like different problems that we're seeing nowadays related to, a cause of water pollution. So the idea is to assist and see what are we dealing and how are we dealing with the water resources and the water treatment process in Kuwait and how to avoid this problem. Why assessment of water pollution is important? We are relying on depending maybe from 4 different point of views, including the geographical. The location in Kuwait is related directly on the seawater, so any pollutant on that water source will affect our consumption because most of the water we are using here is from desalination plants. From point of view of the economical issue, we are now desalinating the water as it is if you're assuming that the water is clean. Now, imagine if the pollutant or the water becoming to a higher level of contaminant, that will raise the price or the cost of treating that water. And the environmental aspect is related to the effect of pollutant over the sea life creatures or the direct contact with the human, or for us, as we are consuming the life creatures such as fishes, if they are contaminated, that will affect us also. And the last issue is the sustainability. Of course, the assessment of water pollution is not a new issue. It's been proposed back maybe. That was one of the objectives that been proposed in 1992 by the UNESCO World Health Organization and the UN Environmental Program. It's stating that the proposed oriented water assessment and predictions taking, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
As I said, it was the issue of water assessment is not new. It was also started a long time ago. And in 1992, it was one of the objectives proposed by the UNESCO and World Health Organization and the UN Environmental Program, stating that the proposed oriented water assessments and predictions take into account the specificity of both surface and groundwater, water quality and water quantity, and addressing all pollutant types. So those will lead us to a conservative approach. In order to analyze or modify the assessment process, we have to see what are we applying or what are the methods that are working with in Kuwait, including the water and wastewater treatment, the reuse and avoid liquid discharge, and manage wastewater treatment process economically. And beyond 3, I mean, for the environmental program, they are showing that in order to sustain a resource, you have to use like the method of reducing, recycling, and reusing. But what is neglecting also nowadays is the recovering useful chemicals and metals and energy from those wastewater, including both municipal and industrial wastewater. That will close the loop over the water and wastewater management. So that will give us a sign of zero discharge, that we are using both recycled treated water and retrieving all the pollutant, or recovering the minerals and energy that we can consume. That's another schematic diagram for the conservative approach, starting by the pollution prevention, which is the closing cycle of water and wastewater, not allowing any discharge without regulation into the fresh or surface water, wastewater treatment, recycle and reuse, and the disposal. As defined by the Environmental Protection Agency, the reuse is defined as using water or reclaimed water from one application to another application. For example, as we mentioned that in Kuwait, we are relying only maybe on the seawater and groundwater in some activities, but recycling and reclaiming water from one source and using other will reduce the pressure on the fresh water that we are consuming directly from the desalination plant, and will give us a new resources that we can lay on as the population and activities from different point of view, including municipal or industrial or agriculture, are increasing nowadays. Let's start with the background, the assessment of water pollution. How can we achieve the assessment, or how can we present it? It relies also on so many factors related to evaluating the pollutant or the water resources, analyzing the pollutant, whether they are biodegradable or not, or whether they are toxic or not. The audit to have like a checklist, are we following a regulation of the Kuwait EPA, any plan to modify, enhance the treatment and recycle reuse processes. What is the goal of that assessment and the measurement? Are we doing things like on a low scale or high scale, advanced level or intermediate level? And the progress, is it like, do we have a database to present those information about any source of water, for example, the seawater or the treated wastewater? Those all factors handling the process of giving a clear assessment of water pollution. In my presentation, I'll rely like in maybe 4 major issues, including the wastewater management and wastewater treatment, monitoring, and public awareness. The definition of wastewater, I mean, just a general definition. It has a kind of polluted water from any activities, for example, the process of removing compounds and microorganisms and the polluted water to which water is discharged. Another definition of the water treatment is presented as the process to render wastewater fit to meet applicable environmental standard being discharged to the environment. In our case, we are following the regulation and parameters issued or presented by KEPA, Kuwait Environmental Public Authority. And it has different criteria, like if you want to treat it for irrigation, it has to meet specific criteria. If you want to return it or discharge it back to the surface water, it has also a higher criteria to reach, or if you want to use it for portable usage. The pollutants. As we are assessing the water pollution, we have to define the pollutant that we are getting in touch with in our water resources. And they are divided in general into 7 categories, including the physical suspended pollutant. They are mainly contaminated of water and its physical properties, or any physical objectives, flotation of those in the seawater that considered a physical pollutant, thermal pollution, oxygen depletion, non-biodegradable pollutant, and turbidity. The second criteria is the chemical pollutant. They are presented by metals, solvents from industrial wastewater, petroleum and oil spills from the tankers or the cargoes, ships, or pesticides. The third category is the nutrient pollutant. They are mainly represented by the nitrogen and phosphorus in water. The following one is the heavy metal pollutant, represented by different heavy metals such as mercury, cadmium, arsenic, and ozone. We have organic pollutant specified according to the organic chemicals, phenol, endocrine disrupting chemicals, dyes, hydrocarbons. We have also the radiation pollutants presented by iodine and radium. And the last and not least is the microbial pollutant represented by bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites. Now let's start with the water resources in Kuwait. What are they? If we categorize them, we will end up with 4 types, including the seawater. We have the groundwater, fresh water presented by the Ministry of Electricity and Water, and treated wastewater, which is presented or modified by the Ministry of Public Work. Of course, according to the geographical location of Kuwait, we are only having the Arabian Gulf with a salinity of 45,000 ppm, which varied between the different seasons. I mean, it will be high in the summer according to the precipitation percentage, and low in the winter, roughly maybe between 42 and 47 ppm. Of course, the seawater is subjected to different criteria or different type of pollutant, including the oil tankers, cargo tankers, fishing boats, oil refineries, power and desalination stations, commercial and pharmaceutical wastewater discharges. You see, like any leakage from those tankers will get directly into the seawater. The oil refineries, we know that some of the refineries or the factories in Kuwait, they are backwashing their systems with the seawater and turn it back without any treatment in the seawater. The power and desalination stations, I mean, if you are taking a water of 45,000 ppm, of course you will extract all the salt and return it back in the water, which will increase on the long term the concentration of salt in the water. And of course, that's the illegal issue, which is the disposal or discharge of wastewater from both commercial restaurant or pharmaceutical institution and the seawater. Those all some of the pollutant or the way seawater gets contaminated. The other category or the other type of water is the groundwater, and they are divided into 4 categories, including fresh water, which is directly getting from the Rotain well. It's below 300 ppm, and you use it like for water bottling. We have the brackish water. The ppm is varied between 3,000 to 5,000. We have saline water, that's usually in Kuwait City between 10,000 to 100 ppm. And located in the northwest of Kuwait, we have the brine water, which is over or beyond 100,000 ppm. So like from a conservative point of view, I mean, you don't need to deal with that water since you have a seawater of 45,000 ppm. So desalinating or treating that water will be less expensive than dealing with the brine water located in the northwest side of Kuwait. Of course, groundwater is subjective to several types of pollutant, but mainly what's penetrating through the soil. For example, like we're using some chemicals and pesticides in order to kill any germs or insects in the agriculture areas. While we're irrigating those plantation, the chemicals will be penetrated through soil to the groundwater, and it will affect it and pollute it over the long term. Other source of pollutant is the underground pipe leakage. I mean, for example, we have so many network or pipes between the service, the ground service and the groundwater. Those will handle the a process of given electricity or water piping and other networks. So any maintenance beyond those areas or damages will kind of cause a crack on those pipes, and the top of water or the leakage will be penetrated also to the groundwater. The fresh water, that's mainly obtained from the Ministry of Electricity and Water, produced by desalination plants in Kuwait, and some service groundwater. For example, like we have maybe 1,000 wells, underground wells for the groundwater, and they are being controlled by the MPW, and they are using it to mix it with the desalination plant product so that they can reach a suitable source of water to be used for a human. On those desalination plants, we have mainly two mechanisms of producing the fresh water, including the reverse osmosis, the RO, or the thermal process, which applied in Kuwait by the multi-stage flash, MSF. As I said, like the mixing rate of water produced to the public is 98 of distilled water produced from those planets, and 2% were taken from the groundwater network in order to mix them and deliver to the consumers. After the mixing process, we'll add another tertiary, not tertiary, it's like disinfection process. You know, I mean, the collected source of water will go through long duration, or no, sorry, it will take a time and distance for the water to reach from the desalination plant to the storage tanks, whether they are towers, service tank, or underground. So we are injecting the water with the chlorine in order to prevent any germs or bacteria raised in that water. And as I said, like the process of delivering the water to the public is related to both the pressure and gravity. The water is pressure to the storage tanks represented by the towers or the subservice tanks or the service tanks, and then by gravity they are delivered to the consumers, including healthcare institutes, houses, schools, malls, and etc. Here's a map showing the location and the number of power desalination plants in Kuwait. There are roughly 6, including صبية station, شويخ station, شعيبة station, Azur station, Doha East and West stations. You see the location of them. I mean, they are all the side of seawater. Those are the type of the tank that we deliver the fresh water before it go to the consumers. We have the towers. The picture on the right side is the service tanks, and the one on the lower left side is the subsurface, will be built underground, and from there we can use some pressure to deliver to the consumers. According to the MEW, on the 3rd of January, the production was 363.697 of fresh water, but the consumption was 391.701. That's a critical issue because you can see like any failure of those desalination plants or in the network or any pollution that can get with the Arabian Gulf could put us in a risk unless we have alternative or storage tanks. And in the Excel sheet here, you can see that the consumption and the population is increasing between 1978 up to 2018. One was producing 78 million gallons per year. The consumption was 56 million daily. But now we're reaching a capacity of in 2018, the produced capacity now is 623.8, while the consumption back in the 2018 is 437.9 million gallons. That's a risky issue if we are taking the desalination and production of fresh water on a daily basis. This is another table showing the major consumption of the water. You can see like between 2016, 2017, 2018, the major consumption or the consumers are the residential and private sector, yeah, and commercial sector and the industrial sector is something that we cannot neglect. The other consumption capacity are related to the agriculture activities, governmental services. I see like numbers are increasing based on a yearly basis, and we have to look for alternative or at least secure what we are producing out of the pollutant around. Now the fresh water, as we discussed the groundwater that is subjected to a different type of pollutant, the fresh water is also here subjected to a different type of pollutant. For example, as I said, like the protection, the storage capacity at risk. If we are producing less than what we are consuming without enough storage tanks to be used in the emergency cases, that will be a risk. The second point is the water quality. I mean, for the production and the treatment, we have to keep the consistency on having a good quality of water, which will require up-to-date maintenance and quality control for the water before and after and throughout the network to define the source, if any, there will be a pollutant. Other source for the fresh water, you know, beside those consumers who are connected to the freshwater network, they are isolated consumer. They are away from, are not connected to the public network, and they use tankers. And those tankers, if they are not maintained or have some maintenance, they could produce pollution for the consumers. Of course, it was detected that through the piping and the network of the freshwater, we have a leakage of 10 to 15%, which is a waste of money for, and we have to define it where and how to overcome that problem. Of course, similar to the other piping, the construction and the maintenance work will probably affect those network and could damage and cause a leak on the freshwater network. And the major issue here is the public awareness program for the maintenance. For example, we heard so many people complaining about the quality of fresh water they're having at home or school, but in the meanwhile, they are not taking any care of the maintenance part for their facilities or the establishment. For example, like for the householders, have you take or make any maintenance to your tankers, your pipes? Do you have a proper filtration system? So that need to be delivered to the public in order to reduce any pollutant in their establishment. Yeah. The wastewater, before I go into the type of wastewater, general definition of water is no longer needed or suitable for usage. For example, like if we use any water in industrial or agriculture, after that the water will be contaminated with pollutant and we cannot reuse it elsewhere unless we treat it. That's a general definition for the wastewater. In Kuwait, we have 3 types of wastewater, including the municipal, domestic wastewater, we have the industrial wastewater and the combined wastewater. If you come to the method of discharging, that's also another issue we have to deal and look up to it. The type of discharging in Kuwait are varied, including connected directly to the MPW, Ministry of Public Work Network, or on-site treatment and reuse, those isolated or not connected to the MPW network. And especially the last 2 points is related to the industrial activities, which they need to pre-treatment and send to public treatment plant located in Al-Wafra station. And some of them is discharging and sent directly to the public treatment plant without any treatment. For some of the factors, as we mentioned, like they don't want to add any extra cost to treating their wastewater, so they pay about 2.8 kd per 1,000 gallon and send their wastewater to Al-Wafa Industrial Wastewater Treatment. What's surprising me is that now at the year of 2020, the old-fashioned method of treatment called septic tank is still available in some of the industrial areas. I will get to it later on in this presentation, but keep in mind that we are trying to eliminate that sort of treatment in Kuwait. Let's get back to the municipal domestic wastewater. Well, it's combined, if you want to define it, it's mainly the water generated or the wastewater generated from the residential areas, especially. And it's combined both the grey and the black water. The grey, if you're going to classify it, the black water directly related to the contamination or the pollutant coming out from the human. So say like the toilet for sure. Any other consumption or activities in the house, excluding human consumption, human waste, is related to as grey water. As I said, like they are collected mainly from the residential areas. Both conventional and advanced methods of treatment are available in Kuwait throughout our wastewater treatment plants. The capacity of treated effluent that we'll discuss later on, and the problematic concern toward those wastewater treatment plants. This schematic diagram or this picture showing the source of grey water versus the black water, you can see that all the black water mainly come from the toilet. Other consumptions or activities coming out from the basin, shower, bath, kitchen or washing machines are referred to as grey water. They are dealing only with chemical wastes. That's it. In Kuwait, we mainly have those that governed or controlled by the government sector are 6 treatment plants located in different areas. The number one is Tلبي Wastewater Treatment Plant, which is the advanced treatment process that we have in Kuwait. We have Kabd Wastewater Treatment Plant. We have Raqqa Wastewater Treatment Plant. We have Al-Wafa Industrial Wastewater Plant. This is the only industrial wastewater treatment plant, I think, in Kuwait. And there's an expansion to have another one in Sabhan, and I think one in Tلبي industrial areas. Of course, I'm talking only about the governmental treatment plants. There are also other sectors such as the oil refineries. They have their own treatment plants, and I haven't got into that because it's kind of restricted a little bit. After Al-Wafa Industrial Wastewater Plant, we have Hayman and the Khairan City sludge treatment plant. Number 6, Khairan City sludge treatment plant was mainly built for the Khairan resource there. So the capacity of it is maybe 7,000 cubic meter per day. Of course, there are new and old municipal wastewater treatment plant, and they were mainly designed to cover the main residential area. I mean, if you go back to the 90s or the beginning of the 2000, that was the main residential areas that generate wastewater or municipal wastewater. However, by the expansion, we had new areas now, which we need to expand and build new wastewater treatment facilities to cover their needs and treat their wastewater. Of course, the expansion including come from the north side, Al-Mutlaq city, we have Al-Qayrawan and Jabr al-Ahmed. You have here, I think, Abdullah Mubarak, yes, Ali Swah al-Salim area, Wafra, and Swah al-Ahmed. Those will increase the volume of wastewater produced daily, and of course expansion and establishing new facilities is a must issue. The method of collecting wastewater from residential areas is that between the residential areas, all the collecting process related to gravity, and they send directly to the pumping station, which is referred to the yellow icon. And from the pumping station, they are by pressure pushed to the wastewater treatment plant. And this is the way we collect wastewater, municipal wastewater from the residential areas. Of course, the capacity, as of today, roughly, we have about 902,000 meter cube per day generated, and as a treated wastewater, and the future expansion will increase to reach 1,300,045 meter cube per day. You can see kept current capacity is 2020, and will be expanded to reach 280,000. Salibia will be expanded from 400,060 to 600,000. Hayban will be expanded from 27,000 to reach 450,000, covering Al Riga, as Al Riga station will be switched and be a pumping station in the future, but the current capacity of it is 180,000 meter cube per day. Khairan sludge treatment plant is producing or treating 5 to 10,000 meter cube per day, and we don't have any plan for expansion, I think. The same one for Al Wafa industrial planets. As I said, like the capacity and the production of water and wastewater at risk, for example, like we are now daily generating or producing 902,000 of treated wastewater per day, meter cube per day. And the average freshwater production is 1,650,000 meter cube per day. And the average freshwater consumption is beyond the one, which is 1,782,000. So that's, as I said and mentioned at the beginning, that's a critical issue unless we have expansion or in the production or the storage tanks. Those need to be facilitated or utilized immediately, I mean, according to those numbers. Now let's talk about the municipal and residential wastewater treatment process. They are dividing mainly on 5 stages: the preliminary stage, the primary stage, secondary stage, and tertiary stage. And the fourth one, which is only applied in Salibia plant, is the fourth stage, which is presented by the advanced RO. In general, I mean, the preliminary stage is just screening for any flotation of cans or plastic bags. Then the water will be transferred to the cat removal, which will be physically separate any gravel and the incoming effluent of wastewater. And then the primary clarifier is another sedimentation tank, also physically separating solid from liquid. The secondary stage is recalled as the biological treatment. It's combining number 4 and 5, which is the aeration and the secondary clarifiers. What happened here in the biological treatment is that we mix artificial bacteria and activate them by oxygen in the aeration tanks. And while they are activated, they consume the organic presented in the wastewater. And some of them will be settled by gravity, and some of them will be floated at the surface of the water, which they need to be clarified in number 5 stage, the secondary clarifier, followed by a disinfection, usually by chlorine process or UV ultra violent light, and then submitted to the distributors, or I mean consumers. The lower tank here is we use two processes for the sludge produced in the treatment, whether they are digested and returned back to the treatment plant or the jet removal, or we take them out as a sludge, put them in a drying bed. The picture following here representing the process of the treatment that we discussed for Al-Kabd wastewater treatment plant. The reception facilities, those who are not connected, will bring the wastewater by tankers. Otherwise, other residential area will be connected and pumped directly through network to those plants. The next stage is also evacuating and distributing the water and the preliminary stage. Here, picture showing the screen for the flotation cans, floating can and plastic bags, and followed by the aeration tank here that we discussed in the secondary phase. And that's the clarifier where we separate the floating organics from the treated water. And here's the process implied by the UV lights as the disinfection process for the water before we send it to the consumers. As I said, like the produced sludge is sent to the drying beds where they kept to be dry for maybe a couple of days, and then it was directly dealt with by the contractor, whether it will be sent to the agriculture area or somewhere else. Yeah. The advanced treatment process, the RO treatment, this is the additional phase which implement only on Tلبي wastewater treatment plant. Of course, here the membrane is related or directly related to the reverse osmosis method of treatment, which is pushing the water by pressure directly from the high contaminant concentration to the low contaminant, producing a quality of water up to the potable water. Of course, the scale or the design of the RO or the membrane is varied, depends on the client requirements. For example, you can reach a pore size of 0.001 micro, which is close to the potable water. You can use a pore size of 0.05 micrometer for metal removal, or 0.02 micrometer for viruses, and 0.5 micrometer for bacteria removal. This picture is directly taken from Tلبي wastewater treatment plant. See the volume, the amount of RO implemented there. Now let's take, as we are discussing the problematic issue related to water, groundwater and seawater, municipal wastewater also having some problem. For example, because the rainfall, I mean, they are connected directly to the sewer network, so any flotation or rainfall will directly get into the wastewater treatment plant and will cause overflow and affect the treatment process, because the treatment process is, for example, is limited to a specific volume. If we go beyond that, the efficiency of the treatment will be reduced, and sometimes they will just bypass without any treatment. Other major issue is the maintenance. Sometimes we don't have any backup, so if you have a maintenance and the treatment plant, that will cause you to stop the treatment process maybe for a day or two, and will overflow the treatment plant, and somehow it could be bypassed without treatment. The third issue with the problematic issue facing municipal wastewater is the tertiary phase. We have conducted so many experiments to examine the efficiency of using a chlorine disinfection or UV light, and we noticed that they were insufficient in removing viruses or antibiotics or such micropollutant. Other issue is that those treatment plants are sensitive to climate changes. I mean, they are subjected to work under the temperature of 25 to 30. Any temperature beyond that will affect the process itself and may generate like kind of a form of filamentous bacteria. Other illegal issue is that, as we mentioned, that somehow some of the parties could be industrial or related to the army campus. They are discharging their wastewater directly into the public network, which will affect the process, because the treatment process here for the wastewater is made to treat all the municipal wastewater. So any interfere with that will affect the process and reduce the efficiency. Beside any chemicals that doesn't meet any efficient treatment will end up in the product water, the tertiary water or the produced treated water, which will get back to the cycle of life in terms of using that water for irrigation or recreational centers. Now we'll come to the industrial wastewater, which is the second type of the wastewater here. Of course, wastewater generated from industrial production, maintenance, and cleaning processes. Any industry, it will not be zero of those, one of those elements. The agricultural wastewater is also considered industrial wastewater because they have some activities that generate wastewater, including the slaughtering waste. They have the milking parlor, we have the fish farms, we have the honey agriculture, and related to their locations in Kuwait, they are located in the north and the south side of Kuwait, and they are kind of isolated, not connected to any network, so they are generating wastewater, and I don't know the issue of treating it. For the industrial wastewater, in general, we have maybe 7 areas. Yes, that's in general as we counted last year. We have Amghara industrial wastewater. We have Slaybiyah, marked by number 2. We have Ardiyah, Shuwaykh, Sabhan, Ahmadi, and West industrial Shaiba. Of course, as we mentioned, like those industrial areas generate different kind of pollutant with respect to their the protection or the type of protection they have. For example, for the chemical production, they have different pollutant. For the painting, for the boilers, cooling towers, refineries. Each factory or each establishment had its own effluent or different pollutant that need to be handled or treated in a different method. Back in 2018, here in Kisser, under the Water Research Center, we conducted, we finalized a project about making a database over Kuwait, including the industrial wastewater in terms of quality and quantity. What we used to do is that the project started with a survey in order to give some general information about the establishment in terms of amount of water consumed, the amount of water produced, any wastewater treatment system available at the establishment or not, the possibilities of using treated wastewater, and that is on the left sheet. The right sheet is producing some field parameters that we check while we're collecting samples. At the end of the project, we managed to generate a database over Kuwait, giving us like the quality and quantity from most of the industrial wastewater. Of course, that database will help us not to know exactly what's the toxic or pollutant produced by that sector, but also will give us a hint and sign on how to produce a method of treating those wastewater. Of course, the project started back in 2008, and this is the second stage of it, that we expand our coverage area of the industrial wastewater sectors. That's a sample of the information we collected with respect to the field measurement, including temperature, pH, conductivity, dissolved oxygen. And we have also other parameters that we investigating according to the EPA regulation, Kuwait EPA regulations, to see what criteria of water need to be reached. For the industrial wastewater treatment, as I said, it was issued back in 2008 that a wastewater treatment plant will be built in Sabhan. Somehow, that treatment plant for the industrial wastewater was shifted to be built in Al Wafra. The case is now any industrial wastewater had to send their wastewater to that treatment plant based on their own costs. As I said, like they will pay 2.8 KD per 1,000 gallon, and excluding the cost of the trip to reach the treatment plant. However, I think we'll discuss later on about some regulation need to be fixed for the industrial areas. Let me discuss and give you a hint of the process in the industrial wastewater treatment plant. Of course, that plant is including 4 processes: the reception, the pre-treatment, secondary treatment, and biological treatment. In the first page, first picture is the reception. We are collecting, the plant is receiving the tankers and allowing them after a quick check on the parameters to get inside the planet. Then they distributed them to five pools. They are divided the wastewater for the discharge of those pools are classified as 5 categories. One of them for the food wastewater. The other one is for the soft drink or beverage wastewater. The third type is the one with the heavy metals, and the fourth type with subject, or can we describe it as heavy contaminated wastewater. So while we are distributing the tankers, they were settled and separated to have their own treatment. The second stage, which is the reception still, is the physical separation of any objective or floating tanks, plastic bags, done by the screens and as shown in the picture. Before the secondary stage, we have here also the chemical adding process, which will cause the chemical or the toxic material to be precipitate in the water, precipitate at the ground before we transfer the water to the secondary stage. And the secondary stage, it consists of 6 tanks, each consists of, 3 tanks, each consists of 2 compartments. While the water gets inside those compartments, we add here the coagulant and mix it with the water, and then it kind of separates the scum and solid particles from the water, and we end up with the effluent at the left side of the tank. The last stage is the biological treatment, which is subjected directly to the aeration, maybe for hours before we send it out to the producer. So the water here and the water treatment plant is mainly used for irrigation purposes in their plant. And as was discussed with them, after the biological treatment, they go through several laboratory parameters and analysis to see the efficiency of the treatment. And from there, they use the water for the irrigation. Of course, the industrial wastewater also have some issues to focus on, because none of them is connected to the public sewer network, so they have to have their own treatment plant. The KEPA regulation, Kuwait Environmental Public Authority regulations, as I said, like back in 2008, the regulations was stating that each factory or establishment need to have a pre-treatment in order to discharge their wastewater. Somehow what we notice now is that not all of them is treating their water. Some of them they are sending as it is, and some of them having some kind of pre-treatment with respect to adsorption or chemical treatment. But as I said, like it's not implemented by or applied by all factories in Kuwait. With the case of problem facing industrial wastewater is that they are lacking a centralized wastewater treatment plant. As we said, like they are expanding. Instead of only having one treatment plant located in Wafra, they're going to have now recently a new plant in Sabhan and another plant located in Sulaibi industrial area. Of course, there are also some in Shu'aiba and those related to the oil refineries sectors. Cost of transportation, transporting wastewater is another issue. As I said, like you have to go maybe 30, 40 kilometers in order to deliver or send your discharge of wastewater. The third one is the pollutant, avid and toxic. Pre-treatment is required. What do we mean by that? I mean, each factory have some different effluent or different pollutant that need to be treated. I mean, one planet or one method of treatment cannot manage to treat all the effluent. So the pre-treatment of each effluent is a must issue. And the fourth one is in terms of the compounds they are using in their manufacturing processes. Are they biodegradable or not? If not, that will make it hard for the municipal, for the industrial wastewater treatment plant to get over that problem. So that's another issue we need to discuss or specify by the risk assessment for the materials being used at each factory. Back to the agricultural areas, as you see, like they are varied and located maybe in the border. One of them is north in Abdali, the other one in Wafa, and number two representing Salabia farms. Most of the activities in Salabia farms are related to animal crops, irrigation. Other consumption products and the human consumption products are made or planted in Abdali and Wafa farms. As we said, like we have it as an categorized as industrial waste because there are so many activities going on those agricultural areas, including the honeycombs. We have the slaughtering processes, the milking machine for the cows, fish farms. All these will generate wastewater that we have to deal with separately. Besides, there's no network to connect for, and this water cannot be left on a septic tank or leave it to be penetrated through the soil, affecting the groundwater. The last case or the source of wastewater is the combined wastewater. In general, we divide it into three sectors, which is the healthcare institutes, airport, and port facilities. Coming to the healthcare institute, you can notice, like from the picture shown in the slide, there are different parameters, different activities going on in those healthcare institutes, including the surgical, the dentist activities, the radioactive through the X-rays, and others. For example, like washing or laundering the covers of all beds there in the hospital. So what we meant by the combined is that the wastewater generated from those healthcare institutes is mixing both municipal and industrial related to the activities, and it has to be treated separately before it goes through the network to the sewer network. Of course, the problem here in Kuwait is that hospital is connected to the Ministry of Public Work network, and they are directly shifted to municipal wastewater treatment plant. In general, the location of the healthcare institutes are, I'm counting here all the governmental institutes, including Amiri Hospital, Al Sabah Medical Complex, Mubarak Hospital, Farwaniya Hospital, Jabir Al Ahmed Hospital, Adan Hospital, and Al Jahra Hospital. As you see, like they are constructed within the residential areas. That's the reason why they were connected to the municipal sewer network. Another combined wastewater is the airport. Beside the water used or the generated from the toilets there, we have some wastewater generated from the hangars and washing the airplanes, and the maintenance and service they are conducted at the airport. Those chemicals are, separate and cannot be compared to the healthcare or the wastewater treatment generated from the residential areas. And these need to be also subjected to a specific treatment. Of course, those are the location for the airports, excluding the expansion of Terminal 4 and the new airport, which is located on the left side of Sheikh Saad Airport. The combined wastewater, the third part is the ports, and this is really critical. It's related to the services that we have to give and support the tankers and the cargo ships. We are a part of international protocol. So, in description, the port reception facilities is only giving like some kind of maintenance and exchanging and maintenance for those ships in order to prevent any leakage in the water afterwards. You can see here like the section are that the ship will get inside the port reception facility, they discharge the water, and they have other material to get rid of. For example, those are the protocol that we signed back in 1978 and 2000. The first one is the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, which is MARPOL, and the other one is the port reception facilities that we have to have at each port. As shown here in the previous slide, we have 4 ports in general, including Port of Shweikh Port, Port of Ahmadi, Port of Shuaibah, and Port of Ahmadi, Abdullah, Abdullah. And those need to be assigned with port reception facilities. As I said, like the port reception facility will add on a need to equip with adequate facility to receive waste from ships, including petrochemical material and oil waste, used oil, sludge, bilge water, and garbage. Out of those 6 items or section that included in this protocol, with respect to the water pollutant, we can deal only with 1, 2, and 4. For example, the regulation, or those will affect the water pollutant in general. For example, the first one is the regulation for the prevention of pollution by oil. A second one is the regulation for the control pollution by noxic liquid substance in the bulk. And the fourth is the regulation of the prevention of pollution by sewage from ships. The other are dealt with the other sectors, for example, the air pollution, garbage pollution, solid, I think, and the pollution by harmful substances, solid one. The last facilities or places where we still generate wastewater are those isolated from the public, isolated and away from any nearest network available. For example, the border, the Ministry of Interior stations, they don't have any network, or and I think most of their wastewater is somehow treated in a conventional method, not advanced one. We have the fire station, firefighting station, we have the military bases, and the oil field activities. All these sectors are generating wastewater and somehow need to follow the regulation of the EPA in order to retreat or treat the generated wastewater they have. As I said here, like unfortunately, this method of treatment is still available in some of the industrial areas, which is the septic tank. It's related. It's based on the mechanism of treatment based on physical separation, and then the water will get into another tank and penetrate it to the groundwater with its pollutant, because I mean that physical separation won't take off any heavy metals, won't take off any viruses, won't take off any bacteria, which will end up in the groundwater on the long term. Okay, now we discussed the type of water and wastewater we have in Kuwait. What are we targeting for, and what's the level that we are monitoring the wastewater in Kuwait? In general, we have 3 types of water monitoring. We have the simple monitoring, we have the intermediate, we have the advanced monitoring. For the simple, it's basically general, it's a narrowed based on the number of sample collected from any wastewater. The parameters are limited to conductivity, temperature, pH. Those calculations can be easily done by a calculator. You are not generating any database out of it. You're not using efficiently or defining exactly what's the pollutant in that water. So we are not at that stage. We are somehow in the intermediate monitoring. The monitoring deal with some laboratory facilities, analysis, more sample to analyze, expanded analysis, variables, numerical output usually delivered using spreadsheets. Here we are expanding the range of water analysis, including pH meters. We have chemical oxygen demand, biological oxygen demand, total organic carbon. Those also give us an indicate, but not in detail, the type of the volume of pollutant we have. What we're aiming and what we are targeting to is the advanced monitoring. The monitoring requires high-tech and innovative instrument to determine water and wastewater quality. That will be like instantly we'll get the result. We can get it online using the 5G network now. A professional, well-trained engineer technician are required to operate those laboratories to give us like exactly when and how and where does that pollutant generated and from where does it affect the processes or not. Such monitoring will generate large database for the process of the treatment and require sophisticated computer usage. For example, for the advanced monitoring, we can have like those online devices that will give you immediate result of TOC, COD, BOD, ammonia nitrate, color, phosphate, hydrogen sulfide. And the way we are monitoring that, as I said, like we can instantly detect where is the problem or where the pollutant is generated, whether is it like legal or illegal of a purpose of discharge. This also, the method of monitoring will give us exactly an up-to-date the source of pollutant and what coverage area does it come from. Of course, the advanced monitoring will utilize by using advanced technologies such as the measuring principle by absorbance. We have the UV fluorescence, we have the laser diode turbide, and we have patent flow cycles that can give us a clue of the water going out through that valve. This is another advanced monitoring for the wastewater, which is the ICP, the inductive coupled plasma microscopies, mass spectrometry. We have here another detailed analysis instrument, including GCMS, gas chromatography, and high liquid chromatography, HPLC, and we have the ICP, the IC, which is the ion chromatography. The last issue is that now at maybe 2018 or 2017, we noticed like a new emerging pollutant categorized as the pharmaceutical, plasticides, plastic compound, pesticides, estrogen pollutant, and others. Those considered to be toxic and harmful for the human, and they are very hard to treat by the conventional method of treatment. They need to apply a new treatment method such as oxidation or advance. Why do we care about those pollutants? Sorry. Why do we care about those pollutants? I mean, in the circle of water, you can see like those medications or plastic or any pollutant, it's getting back from the production sector to the consumption, whether by human or by the animal that we consume as human, or the water, whether we are discharge it or return it back to the natural resources. So if we didn't treat it well to a specific parameter or remove it totally from the wastewater that we are treating and the municipal wastewater treatment plant or the industrial wastewater treatment plant, it will get back to us in an indirect way and will affect us on the long term. This diagram shows like if we choose one of the pollutant or the toxic pollutant and subject them to the conventional wastewater treatment plant. For example, like if we have a retention time for 10 hours and we produce or discharge several pollutants from both healthcare or industrial and municipal wastewater together in one system, you can see that the removal capacity or removal efficiency is varied between 12% to up to 100%. That's what we indicated that each effluent need to have its own treatment method. Of course, in order to modify that and give there's like so many treatment methods to be applied for sector, depends on the manufacturer or the process or the activities they are having. Out of the chemical categories, we have chemical reduction, we have advanced oxidation, we have wet oxidation, precipitation, endothermal, we have evaporating distillation, hydrolysis, we have in the physical liquid extraction, adsorption by adsorbents such as activated carbon or others, coagulation, flocculation. We have mechanical and biological represented by sedimentation, centrifugation, filtration, nitrification, and denitrification. In summary, of course, the assessment of water pollution relies on several factors, including approach of zero liquid discharge in order to treat and recycle the water within its own establishment, advanced level of water and wastewater monitoring, and efficient method of water management and treatment. Public awareness related to wastewater discharge must be implemented successfully according to KEPA regulations, Kuwait Environment Public Authority. The process of treating wastewater requires different method mechanism with respect to the source of type of pollutants. In general, I just presented several recommendations. I'm sorry, but my laptop is running out of battery. Anyway, the recommendation to establish periodic monitoring system, extend KEPA regulation and standard for both treated and grey wastewater for reuse purposes, public awareness for household commercial offices related to the effect of disposal hazard material into public sewer networks such as paint and chemicals, expand detection limits of trace metals in treated and reused water to avoid important for both agricultural activity and animal activities and both agricultural activities and animal. Risk assessment for industrial sector. That's what I used to say, like the risk assessment will describe the material or the component the factory using in their production line, and is it biodegradable or not, so that it won't raise another issue for the government to treat their wastewater. Hence, authority need to reconsider pre-treatment process for each factory. The other point is the commercial contribution and different scale would reduce water pollution. For example, mercury recovery from dentist clinics and cadmium emission by reducing phosphate as production ingredient of washing powder. We need to have port reception facilities. Sorry. Sorry about that. As I said, coming back to the recommendation to have port reception facilities. Attention need to be paid for urban runoff materials, chemicals such as street cleaning process, vehicle pollutant, construction building leaching, and decomposing back into the sewer network. Conventional method of treatment for the wastewater treatment plant required upscaling to overcome the total removal estrogen and synthesis estrogen generally using or produced by the pharmaceutical effluent. As I said, like as we test the tertiary process produced by the ultraviolet or the chlorine, they were not sufficient in producing, and we need to upscale those treatment plants in order to overcome this problem. Next point is the method of effluent separate line need to be implemented in different sectors, including residential, commercial, and industrial. So the process of treating grey water will be different from process of treating black water, or the industrial wastewater. It has to have some different line for the process of treatment. Of course, the Healthcare Institute wastewater, as it's connected directly to the Ministry of Public Work Network, need to have a pre-treatment before a discharge there. The last 2 points are dealing with the isolated location and the cost of connected to the nearest wastewater treatment plant. Agricultural wastewater is required to be treated and reused on site. And the last point is identify isolated resource of wastewater, such as the Ministry of Interior border checkpoints, firefighting station, military campus, to utilize the concept of on-site wastewater treatment and reuse. Thank you so much. If you have any question, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hussain, for this presentation. Into more perspective, it's actually
Thank you.
Scarier now that you see the numbers, and especially with the pandemic, I'm sure water usage is just even more now, and the wastewater is even much more.
Yes.
Into the chat, and we'll start answering them. And also, I had no idea a lot of waste are produced waste. You never even think of that.
Which are?
Like for the honey farms, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, those facilities need to be washed and cleaned. I mean, that generated wastewater need to be treated separately.
So our first is, how does desalination work exactly?
The desalination, it's work on different mechanism, whether it's an RO or thermal. I mean, the thermal is related to the evaporating and using a high temperature to evaporate the water and separate the water from the salts, or using the RO, which is the the mechanism of nanofiltration. As you notice, like we have different scale for that. We can reach up to potable water, and we can have it designed to have a pores removing all the kind of pollutant. So those two methods used in the desalination plants.
Water treatment plants enough for Kuwait, or do we need more?
No, we need more, I think. I mean, as we are expanding, I mean, did you see the figures that, or the numbers I put? I mean, we are just treating now 900,000 meter cube per day. And in the future, with the expansion, it will be about 1,300,000. However, by increasing the capacity of those treatment plants, we are also the nation or the population is increasing. So, and put in mind that some of the residential areas haven't been occupied yet. So once they occupied and generate wastewater, I think additional capacity need to be raised for those treatment plants.
So speaking of new areas, will this help with wastewater resources or no?
To be honest with you, for the new yes, in terms of capacity, yeah. I mean, if you are generating wastewater with those and use it like as, for example, even for the irrigation, or use it like in minor activities at home, such as the flush or the washing activities, you will reduce the pressure on the fresh water you are using from the distilled wastewater, and economically it will be visible and positive to be taken care of.
And we have a question about brackish water. So if we use brackish water for more activity, can we actually sustain water in Kuwait?
Well, to be honest with you, the brackish water is some sectors or some facilities are avoiding doing so because of the kills and the salts within the brackish water. For example, we can use it like for the washing, but in the instrumentation or the process of industrial activities or agriculture, they need maybe to be having a water as a portable source, or up to the scale of fresh water. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, we have to put a code way to use the treated wastewater in order to reduce the pressure of the fresh water. But brackish, yeah, we can have so other activities as we mentioned before, yeah. But not a major issue.
On a personal level, to reuse the wastewater at home, is there something I can somewhere or no?
Well, yes, at home you can use the wastewater. For example, you have to have a code for the housing in Kuwait. For example, taking care of the fresh water. I mean, the treated wastewater can be used for the flushing, can be used for the washing, can be used for irrigation, can be used for those services that do not interact with the human directly.
So, in your opinion, is there a country that has a good example of securing water resources so that we can follow it here in Kuwait?
Well, for example, one of the countries is using like all the membrane technologies, the RO technologies, to treat all the wastewater. They said we need all the produced water to be in a scale of potable water, but that will also raise the cost of doing so. While in Kuwait, for example, if you want to treat the wastewater generated from the mosque. I mean, what's the pollutant in that water? It's only used for wudu. So there's no need to pay that much of money to put in RO system and treat it. You can do it like conventional wastewater. Other facilities, the army or the airport or the healthcare institute, I mean, they have to have like separate lines with separate method of treatment. That will just reduce the cost and instead of just having an RO treatment. So you have the option if you want to take it like a technically approach. Each pollutant need to be treated separately, or effluent need to be separately with an adequate system of treatment. But if you want to produce the RO or the potable grade of water, you can use membrane for that.
And for our final question, are estrogenics estrogen? Does this come from pharmaceutical products?
Yes, it comes from the consumption, because the process is that when human consume those estrogens or hormones, they buy, or the antibiotics, for example, they bypass their body and go with the urine outside in to the public network, and somehow they bypass the process, the conventional wastewater treatment process that we're having in all the treatment plant in Kuwait, except Slabia. So we end up, I mean, having those pollutant or micropollutant in the produced wastewater or the treated wastewater. In order to do so, we have to modify the process, either using like an RO, or you have can we use an advanced oxidation processes in order to mainly or degrade those pollutants into carbon dioxide and water without leaving any byproducts.
So that was our final question for this evening. Dr. Hussein, thank you so much for being our guest tonight and just sharing your wealth of information and showing us the behind the scenes tours of these wastewater management treatments.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to join this journey with you, and wish you the best luck.